Yeah, so just want to do a quick video because we did manage to, that machine that I said the other day that I was trying to pick up, couldn't get contact with the guy. I did get in contact with him in the end. I think he was just sort of busy and didn't see my messages or something. But been and collected this, bit of a trek. It was like a 9-hour round drive to get it. So I went and got this Tuesday, today's Thursday, and I spent Wednesday stripping it down completely. Because it had been sat for, I would guess it's been sat for years. It was like rusted, all the adjusters are rusted, solid and that. But after a good strip and clean, it has come up pretty damn well, really. Not bad at all. I'm really pleased. I didn't think it would come up quite as good, especially this lower bar. I thought it'd be a lot more pitting on it when you looked at it, because it really did look like it had been buried in the garden for a bit, some bits of it. But now that it's cleaned up, come up really good. Rails, took all the rails off. Cleaned them, polished them with some Scotch-Brite and some buffing compound, and given everything a good grease up. Need to get it. I'm not sure if it's going to stay there. It might actually not be a bad place for it, because the rear table for the drawer fronts and backs is at this height, so it kind of misses the bench. But it would mean if I did have stuff, like quite often I have cabinets sort of sat along there on a bench, and if they're there they might end up getting in the way a bit, but it might stay there for now anyway. But it's got a temporary, I've just temporarily stuck the airline on it, but I will hard plumb it properly with some airline. And yeah, so this is it's a Dovetailer, by the way, in case anyone didn't sort of recognise it by looking at it. But you've got these pneumatic clamps here to hold your drawer sides. I'm waiting for a new cutter to come. That should hopefully be here tomorrow. Ordered that from JMJ Woodworking up at Hull. They're like a main dealer for Omec in the UK, so they've got the genuine spare parts in stock, which is handy. I thought I might have to wait for it to come in, but they do hold stock of it. Quite a clever design actually, because the way that if you've used a traditional dovetail jig, the way that you adjust the tightness of your fit is by raising and lowering the cutter. Which you don't have with these. I don't know if you can see, but there's this little plus minus sign here, and this cutter's eccentric. So essentially, as you rotate the cutter in the collet and relock it in, because it's eccentric, the cut gets wider or narrower, so you can adjust the fit without adjusting the height at all. And then this is the head itself, and it's not CNC controlled or anything, it is manual. But very smooth and permanent setup and very easily adjustable. You've got a few different spacings down here. So at the minute, whatever's on the very bottom is the one it's reading. So this is a 25mm pitch. So that's 50mm pitch. So 25mm 10 and 25mm socket. They aren't variable pin to dovetail ratios, so they are fixed. So if you've got an 80mm pitch on here, you've got 25, 50, 40 and 80. They're your 4 different pitches. So if you've got 80mm, it's a 40mm tail, 40mm socket. So it's not like a lead jig where you can have like a narrow pin and have a much wider tail. But for most things I think it'll be okay. I mean, my idea is that for the more high-end jobs I do, probably still use the lead jig with a nice variable spacing. For jobs where it's not so important, I'll still use dovetail boxes anyway, so I may as well use this, and it'll be a little bit faster. One nice thing about it, because you've got 2 sets of pneumatic clamps, if you draw up to about sort of 220 wide, which is a kind of reasonable depth pan drawer, I do some wider than that, you can put 2 sides and a front and a back in at the same time, so you're getting 2 machining processes with one setup, so that'll be a little bit quicker. But yeah, that's it there. So we've got a new air filter on it, put a little bit of oil in there just to keep the pneumatics, because I haven't got a dryer on mine, so having a little bit of oil on the infeed just helps to stop anything seizing up. And then if we have a look at this, so the way that it actually works for anyone who's interested in one or hasn't seen one before is underneath here you can see we have this follower pin, and this follower pin locates in these points here. So it's not like a jig, nothing's being read off of these fingers, this is just support for the workpiece. And if I move the head along, hopefully, it's hard to get a photo of it because it's all kind of hidden in, you can see it follows the pins and goes like this. But it's a bit odd, it's different feeling, because obviously you're used to normally using a router from above and you're cutting, whereas everything's flipped on this, you know, your tail board's going vertically upwards from there, so it's a bit of a different feeling to use. But done a couple of test cuts and it's burnt the wood because this bit in it, I suspect it's the original bit that come with it, it's so blunt it's ridiculous, it's like chewing its way through. But even after a couple of test cuts. I mean, got some really nice fitting dovetails really quickly, very fast setup, very quick to adjust if you want. Like if you want drop fronts, so sometimes I do drawer boxes with drop fronts for inside larders, where the front of the box is lower than the sides of the box so that it covers the runners. So good for that, I can do that very quickly on it. And I think overall a really decent machine, which I paid a very low price for, so it was kind of too cheap to say no really. It was off of eBay, bought it on there. Not many people bid, less people bid than I expected, and I got it for about half of what I put as my maximum bid, so can't complain at all. But yeah, if anyone's kind of, I had a look about when I was looking, when I stripped this down and put it back together to see if I could find any videos on eBay. So if anyone, on YouTube, if anyone has bought one of these recently in the future, you know, if someone's looking at this video in the future and you've got any questions, I have completely taken this apart and rebuilt it when I cleaned it up, so there's not a lot of information out there. If you've ever got any questions, feel free to stick them in the comments, and if I'm still alive and kicking, I'll try and answer and help if I can. But yeah, bit of a different machine, bit interesting, and hopefully someone else will be maybe not as excited as me about getting it, but yeah, you know, fairly interested in having a look at it anyway. What I'll do is when I get the new cutter next week, I'll stick a short on of it actually cutting the dovetails, show you how quick you can do a box. I mean, realistically, once you've got your components cut, I think you can knock a box out in terms of cutting the joints, obviously not gluing up, in about a minute and a half, something like that. So fairly, you know, not a full production machine like an F10 or F11 or whatever it is, the big CNC models, but certainly a lot more efficient than a jig and a router, and no danger of anything tipping. So I say, got any questions, feel free to pop them in. Hopefully it wasn't too boring, but say I'm a bit excited about a new machine, which is always nice. So cheers.